Before we begin, imagine this. A student stands outside the doors of the student union, watching classmates file in for orientation. She hesitates, not because she lacks interest, but because the fluorescent lights inside trigger her migraines. She wonders if anyone thought of that when they designed the space, or if she was expected at all. This episode is about those doors who they open for and who still waits outside. Welcome, I am your host, Maya Quinn, and in our second President podcast on student affairs, we turn to a long overdue conversation: disability in higher education. But this isn't about paperwork or accommodation forms. This is about culture, architecture, and justice. This podcast is entitled Disability, Dignity, and Design: Student Affairs in an Inclusive Future. The first question is, how can student affairs move from compliance to community? Let's join the presidents.
This is deeply personal for me. My nephew is autistic, and watching him try to navigate college was heartbreaking and enlightening. So at St. Bridget's, we've shifted away from a model of special services toward what we call universal belonging. Every orientation leader is trained in disability-inclusive language. Our residence halls are being restructured with neurodiverse-informed design, quiet zones, consistent lighting, and alternative communal spaces. This isn't about accommodation. It's about reimagining the blueprint, both literal and cultural.
I really appreciate that, Monica. At Midland State, we did a 5-year retention audit. The data was sobering. Students registered with disability services had a 12% lower retention rate, and most of them weren't even using the services. Why? Stigma, bureaucracy, exhaustion. So we made a bold shift. We embedded disability cultural centers in the heart of our student union, separate from the medicalized model. These centers aren't about documentation. They're about identity. Students lead workshops, host affinity groups, or just exist without having to justify their presence.
James Baldwin once said, "The world is held together by the love and the compassion that we have for one another." That sentiment lives at the center of what we're building. At Brookhaven, we're applying design justice principles, asking, who is this space disabling, and how do we undo that harm? We created a disability review board, students, staff, and faculty, that reviews every new app, building, or program before it launches. And equity must be full spectrum. Faculty and staff with disabilities deserve better too. Our Student Affairs Office now sponsors an employee affinity network for neurodivergent and chronically ill staff. Because if equity isn't campus-wide, it's hollow.
Exactly, James. And let's not forget the constant emotional labor disabled students carry. We now allow students to submit accommodation requests via video, and our student affairs team is cross-trained to recognize invisible disabilities like PTSD, chronic fatigue, dyslexia. We've trained them to respond with curiosity and compassion, not skepticism.
We also restructured our crisis response protocol. Our conduct and safety officers now receive trauma-informed de-escalation training through partnerships with disability justice organizations. When a student is in distress, our default isn't security, it's the care team, disability support, mental health counseling, and a trained peer responder. De-escalation begins with dignity.
What's one common campus practice that unintentionally excludes disabled students? And how can we redesign it?
I'll start with event planning. So many campus events, career fairs, club expos, speaker series, are loud, overstimulating, and inaccessible by default. We've developed a sensory-friendly event certification that student orgs can earn. It covers things like clear signage, live captioning, quiet zones, and visual schedules. It's not complicated, but it shows care.
I'd say advising systems. Too many assume students can self-navigate complex bureaucracies with perfect memory, executive functioning, and zero anxiety. At Brookhaven, We've implemented advising scripts and visual workflows, step-by-step guides that make the invisible visible. It helps everyone, not just disabled students. That's the beauty of universal design.
Grading policies. Many syllabi still use strict attendance or late work penalties that don't account for fluctuating disabilities or chronic health conditions. At St. Bridget's, we've built a faculty partnership program that offers one-on-one coaching on flexible assessment and inclusive grading. It's not about lowering standards, it's about expanding access to success.
Thank you. It's clear. Disability inclusion isn't a niche issue. It's a lens through which we can build better campuses for everyone. What we've heard today isn't just reform, it's a shift in worldview. From fixing students to fixing systems. Before we close, let me ask each president one final question. What is one thing every campus could do this year to better support students with disabilities?
Fund a full-time disability cultural liaison. Not a compliance officer, a connector. Someone whose job is belonging. This role should report directly to student affairs leadership and be embedded in the everyday rhythms of campus life, orientation, residence life, programming, and policy. They're not gatekeepers. They're bridge builders. Someone who doesn't just ask, "What do you need?" but also, "What do you know?" Because disabled students aren't just recipients of support. They are architects of better systems.
Audit your entire student affairs web presence for accessibility, and let disabled students lead the audit. That means more than alt text and contrast checks. It's about usability, clarity, and emotional tone. Can a screen reader navigate the counseling center's appointment system? Can a neurodivergent student understand the housing process without anxiety? We formed a digital accessibility fellowship that pays students to test and redesign these systems alongside staff. It's been transformative. When disabled students co-author the infrastructure, we stop retrofitting and start rebuilding with intention.
Pay disabled students to consult on policy and space design. Don't just listen. Partner. Too often, we ask for stories without offering power. But lived experience is expertise. At Brookhaven, we now include disabled students on design committees for everything from residence halls to mental health protocols, and we compensate them fairly. This isn't a side conversation. It's governance. Inclusion means co-ownership. If you want to build a campus that works for everyone, start by valuing the insight of those most often left out.
Disability is not a deficit. It is a form of knowledge, a source of community, a lens for reimagining what justice looks like. Student Affairs holds immense power, not just to open doors, but to reshape the rooms themselves. Thanks for joining us for another episode of President Podcast on Student Affairs. This concludes Disability, Dignity, and Design. Student Affairs in an Inclusive Future. This is Maya Quinn, signing off.